Ta-da, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is Rockin' Dave from North Fort Myers, Southwest Florida. And welcome to Tech Talking Tuesday. And today, we're going to do something a little different. And actually, we're going to move some of the Tech Talking Tuesdays to more of the actual technology. And we'll still do some of the techniques. But the reason being is we are starting an online guitar lesson service titled DB Guitar Jams, and we're going to be launching that pretty soon. And the lessons are going to be very comprehensive, and they're going to be where you take them at your convenience. So I'm sure everyone's going to like that. My wife will post all the details as we get them, and we'll let everybody know. But it's going to be really exciting because it's going to go into virtually every aspect of my playing. It's definitely go into every aspect of my guitar playing techniques, from shredding guitar to classical guitar to flamenco guitar and everything in between. So, but what I want to do for today, for Tech Talking Tuesday, is I've had people ask me this question: what is the difference between nylon string guitars and steel string guitars? Okay, well, there's several differences. One is the sound, two is the feel of it, and three is these necks are slightly wider than on steel string guitars. And in all actuality, this is considered a flamenco guitar. So I do have a traditional classical guitar where the neck is even wider than this. And if you could see, I have side marking dots. You could see those, right here, and there, and there. Whereas on my classical guitar, there's absolutely no side markers, no markers on the fretboard at all either. So, okay, so basically, as far as sound and tone is concerned, the top three strings on a nylon string, here's the misconception. When people look at these, they really see that these look like they're steel, and actually there's steel wrappings around it, or we could say metal wrappings around it. But if I were to pull back here on where I have the tie-ends, there's actually like nylon fibers, so it's almost like hairs. And another misconception, people think these are plastic, where they're actually a nylon, and they're actually more expensive than steel strings. Now, this concept of nylon strings versus steel strings, these used to be considered gut-strung guitars. And it's not because you're tying them and wrapping them around the bridge or anything. It's literally because this style of guitar, although back in the day it was a lot smaller, and I'm talking about perhaps pre-1864, 1862 or 3, around that time, as far as market-wise. Antonio Torres had the idea of building what we know as full-body size guitars. Of course, it did not have the cutaway, and but they were considered they were a lot smaller in size. But the reason why they were considered gut strung is because in those times, and I'm talking way before 1800s, they would use strings, any type of a strung instrument. Out of the strings would be made out of the intestines from whatever animals that they would be hunting, and it was a way of the human race using all parts of the animals that they would kill, not just the meat for eating, excuse me, and the bones for certain hard structures, but also the intestines. Nothing was wasted. I know that sounds a little gross, but that's what was going on. And then later on we got steel, and then they had the idea with the steel strings. But this is the difference in tone. So I'm going to play a melody on my nylon string, and I'll play it with my finger picking, then I'll play it with the pick. So here you could be able to tell the difference. Also, the difference in tone, I want to say, is that these will be considered much more mellower in tone, whereas the steel string is much more brighter in tone. But if you play back by the bridge, you do get a much more metallic sound. Here you get a warm, round sound, tone. Plus, these strings are not as easy to bend. I mean, you can. But when you do your slides, they come out smoother. Now, these type of guitars are always compared and used in, classical. And also in bossa nova jazz. And flamenco. But it does get used in rock music, and I don't just mean in ballads. The great rock, if you want to call them rock, guitar duo Rodrigo y Gabriela, they'll play a lot of their originals as well as Metallica songs on a nylon string guitar. It does have a certain percussive type of tone. Especially when you work what's called the Roscados technique. So, now again with the pick, I'll use basically the same melodies, and again if you pick by the bridge, you will get more of a trebly sound, whereas you move to these guitars in particular, you could really hear the difference between playing over back by the bridge versus over the sound. You could really hear the mellowness, because these guitars are really tailored for much more mellower sound. The strings will last longer. However, when you change them, you really got to stretch them out. And most of them, the vast majority of them, you have to tie them at the end here. They do make a ball end, but, until they get that a little bit more engineered, normally you will see this. I mean, they're still good, but they seem to, the wraparound comes out. Now, usually what happens is mostly you start breaking the string by the D string because it starts to actually unravel from here. It'll start to do that here, where these strings they'll last and last. And the only thing that really happened with these is the tone becomes more and more duller as time goes on, because of, that's just the nature of them. When you're playing them, they're not going to last forever, but the tone will dull because of sweat and dirt and corrosion and things of that nature. Well, you don't really get corrosion, but you get dirt and sweat. But it's really hard to break these, where these will eventually, back down here, will start to unravel and snap. Okay, so now let's go check out the difference on the steel string guitar. Now, with the steel string, what you're going to notice is a much more brighter sound. Now, the neck is a lot more narrower, but there are some manufacturers that will make a wide neck on a steel string. Usually, you have what they call saddles or saddle pins. Now, my Breedlove, as well as Ovation guitars, you don't have the pins. They'll thread through the back here and just come on up. So they call that a pinless bridge. Okay. And another thing with nylon string guitars, a lot of them have what they call the slotted headstock. But there is steel strings that will have this. They call that slotted headstock. Whereas the majority of your steel strings just have a traditional headstock with the tuners and the way the tuners are. When you change strings on these guitars, it's much more easier to stretch them out, and they will They will last just as long, maybe not as long as on a nylon string, but it depends. Depends on your sweat, depends on the atmosphere you play, how often you play, and things of that nature. But let's go ahead and do the exact same thing, same idea of playing back by the bridge area, a lot more brighter. But you still get a little bit of mellow. But you get a little, I call it tinging sound, because the strings are steel. Okay. And another thing, on a nylon string guitar, they call these 3 strings here wound, because there's winding around it, where these are plain, okay? On a steel string guitar, on a steel string acoustic, you'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4 strings wound. Usually your 3rd string is wound, where the B and the high E is not wound. But you can get this 3rd string where it's not wound. You could get that as well. But now when you do palm muting, the steel strings will seem to be more percussive type, And even with your rhythms. Now, plus, when you play rock music on these, they do have a much more punchier sound. You can get a punchy sound out of the nylon string. It's just not as prominent, not as pronounced. So the strings are tighter. You can bend these. Now on my 3rd string, I tend to bend it down. A little bit up too. So those are just some of the differences. Now I do have light gauge acoustic strings on my steel string, and on my nylon string I have what they call extra hard tension, meaning that they don't wobble as much, because nylon strings, they will wobble, but the extra hard tension, they don't wobble as much. The effect I get out of that is I get more sound projection, but also when I'm doing my pick with the pick, the string doesn't wobble. Now the rattling you hear is a little bit from my guitar synth. This chord will, rattle a little bit. But now you can break these strings when you're bending them. Sometimes, very seldom, they'll break from here, but these really are all steel. This is a wraparound on a steel core, so they will last. They will last longer. However, because they're steel, if you sweat, they'll tarnish quicker. If that makes any sense. There are certain areas that you'll see, especially if you do a lot of palm muting, you'll definitely see it. And it depends on how much you play it. And if you're doing outdoor gigs in the summertime or down here in the tropics, it will definitely make a difference as far as its lasting, But other than that, I had people ask me, well, I want to start playing guitar, but I don't know what I should do. And someone told me about nylon strings being softer. They are softer on your fingers. And if you are willing to have someone, pay someone to change the strings, or you learn to change the strings on your own. So I always prefer people learn how to change their own strings. Just keep in mind you don't have to stretch them out. But once they're stretched out, you're good to go. But it is good to have a steel string guitar to get your fingers strong. You don't have to put very heavy strings to kill your fingers. I used to do that, and I really don't recommend people doing that, because what happens is they get turned off from it. And in this day and age, we have video games and YouTube and everything else to distract us. Where when I started playing back in 1974, you really didn't have all this stuff to distract us. So our focus factor was a lot more, because we had no choice. Not to say that you guys won't have a strong focus factor. So I just wanted to do a quick rundown on that because it's something that I get asked quite often, especially when people are looking to buy a steel string or a nylon string. And again, I always tell them, go to the music store, spend some good quality time playing each guitar, and you make the decision for yourself, okay? Now, as a quick reminder, tomorrow being Wednesday, we will have our Rocking Ibanez Guitar Live session, and we're actually going to have it from 7:30 to 8:30. That's 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, ET. That doesn't stand for extraterrestrial or early times for those who drink alcohol. It stands for Eastern Time. And we'll be talking more about the difference between the Ibanez Low Pro Tremolo system versus the newer Ibanez whammy bars that they're putting on some of the newer guitars. And we'll be touching on some the differences with the gigs, outdoor gigs, what to look for, and what to be aware of. But that'll be tomorrow night, Wednesday, from 7:30 to 8:30 Eastern Time. Okay, my friends, if this has been helpful, this has been Tech Talking Tuesday. Rockin' Dave Byron, give you one of these bad boys from Southwest Florida. North Fort Myers, Southwest Florida, my friends. We thank everyone that has subscribed. We've got new subscribers. Thank you so much. We value all of our subscribers. Every single one of you matters to me. And so if you like what you see, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Hit that bell, and I'll let you know when dinner's ready. And until tomorrow, my friends, stay safe. Always hold the doors of opportunity open for someone. Do never, ever, ever, ever be an opportunity growth choker. Those are the people that want to invite you in. As soon as you walk in, they slam the door in your face. Don't ever do that to people because it'll come right back to you, my friends. So always keep things real. Never get lost in delusion. Keep things real. Keep your eyes open. Stay focused when you practice. When you get out in the real world, put on those global vision goggles so you could see all around you and be aware of your surroundings. And always, my friends, always desire to inspire. Okay, my friends, until tomorrow, we'll see you. You have a great evening. Take care. Thank you. And God bless. See you later.